Across the center of Europe lies a question shaped by the land itself. How can such a small country contain such extraordinary geological variety? In Switzerland, mountains rise in sharp tectonic lines. Deep lakes rest beneath them like mirrors carved by ancient ice, and cities follow the terrain as if placed precisely where the landscape allows. Here, water, stone, and light do more than create scenery. They shape identity. Join this journey through Switzerland's structure, from ridgelines to lake basins, from glacial valleys to cities molded by the land, to see how nature arranges form and scale into a coherent, deliberate whole. Rising above the Pennine Alps with an outline recognized across the world, the Matterhorn stands as one of the most geometric landforms in Europe. Its structure is not defined by height alone, but by form. 4 near-symmetrical faces, arranged like the facets of a stone monolith, each aligned with cardinal directions. This precision is the result of millions of years of uplift, compression, and erosion forces that sculpted the mountain into a sharp, pyramidal summit unlike any other in Switzerland. The ridges that converge at its peak, Hörnli, Zmutt, Fürgen, and Lion, form clean, linear spines that cut across the surrounding sky. These ridgelines expose layers of metamorphic rock pushed upward from deep within the Earth's crust, revealing the mountain's origins with striking clarity. Snow clings only to protected recesses. The steeper faces shed it quickly, leaving dark mineral surfaces exposed and defining the mountain's sharp geometry. Below the summit, the glacial valleys form a contrasting world. Moraines, debris fields, and braided meltwater streams stretch outward like traces of ancient retreating ice. These features reveal the continuing dialogue between the Matterhorn and the forces that shaped it: gravity, freeze-thaw cycles, and long-term erosion. The Matterhorn does not merely dominate the landscape, it organizes it. It stands as a structural anchor of the Alps, a peak where symmetry, geological tension, and vertical force converge into a single, unmistakable form. At the northern edge of Lake Lucerne, where the Reuss River cuts through a landscape of water and rising mountain mass, the city of Lucerne forms a rare intersection between nature and urban structure. The lake expands like a polished corridor, its surface bordered by the silhouettes of Pilatus and Rigi mountains that encircle the city with the geometry of an open amphitheater. Within this setting, Lucerne's old town stands at the water's edge, its red-tiled roofs and pale facades forming a distinct architectural layer between lake and mountain. Brücke, the medieval wooden bridge, stretches across the Reuss as a reminder of the city's long-standing role as a regional gateway. Alongside it, the Musseg Wall and its towers rise as fragments of an older defensive system now absorbed into the urban landscape. These structures anchor the city's identity, their straight lines and stone surfaces contrasting with the fluid reflections on the water below. Light defines Lucerne with precision. Morning stillness turns the lake into a reflective plate, duplicating both mountain and city in near-perfect symmetry. At sunset, the palette shifts into deeper gold and red, binding architecture, water, and sky into a single gradient. In winter, the snow-covered peaks behind the city create a stark backdrop that heightens the clarity of every building and shoreline. Lucerne stands as a deliberate balance point, a place where water shapes movement, mountains define scale, and architecture records centuries of continuity. In northeastern Switzerland, where the landscape transitions from lowland plains to the rising stone mass of the Alpstein, Appenzell occupies a broad foreland, shaped by gentle contours and deep geological time. Here, the terrain does not ascend abruptly. It rolls, forming convex hills, wide green slopes, and open meadows that act as a soft counterweight to the vertical limestone ridges beyond. This dual structure, the calm foreground set against the hardened stone of the Alpstein, defines Appenzell's visual identity. Architecture in the region follows the logic of the land. Wooden houses with painted facades and traditional silhouettes spread across the hills, appearing as anchored elements rather than imposed structures. The built environment reflects continuity rather than expansion, fitting into the terrain's rhythm of curves and layered horizons. Light plays a decisive role in shaping the visual character. Morning illumination travels freely across the meadows, creating large gradients of green, while the high ridges behind remain sharply outlined. When clouds settle in the valley, the limestone peaks often stand above the mist, reinforcing the height difference between the soft foreland and the rigid mountain wall. Appenzell is not defined by dramatic elevation or extreme geology, but by the contrast it creates. It is a meeting space between two landscapes, one shaped by smooth erosion and slow vegetation growth, the other by abrupt uplift and exposed stone. Together, they form a terrain where Swiss rural identity and alpine structure converge with striking clarity. Along Switzerland's northeastern boundary, where the limestone Alps have been lifted and tilted by tectonic collision, Rotstein Pass unfolds as a natural passageway etched directly into the central ridge of the Alpstein. The landscape narrows into jagged ridges, broken plates, and abrupt vertical drops. Here, the mountains expose their structure plainly, revealing layers formed through millions of years of uplift and erosion. For centuries, the pass has acted as a hinge between opposing terrains. To the north lie the soft green basins of Appenzell, to the south, the mineral heights leading towards Sentis, the dominant summit of the range. This sharp shift from meadow to rock defines the corridor and reflects the violent origins of the Alps. Set high in the Alpstein, Rotstein Pass sits where the terrain reaches its most angular form. Steep walls, exposed ridgelines, and hard gradients create a concentrated display of alpine geology. The pass also anchors demanding routes. The Rotstein Pass Klettersteig clings to vertical limestone, while the ascent to Sentis follows narrow ridges that drop into deep valleys. Here, Switzerland's usual softness vanishes. Limestone rises in cold, sharp lines, turning the corridor into a blueprint of the range. Valleys sink like ancient basins, ridges cut the skyline in serrated patterns. Rotstein Pass is not merely a crossing. It is evidence of the forces that built the Alps: compression, fracture, and constant vertical pressure written directly into stone. Set deeper within the Alpstein range, where limestone masses rise into towering walls shaped by the peaks of Fronalpstock, Altmann, Saxer and Kreuzberg. The landscape closes in around Fälensee, like stone cradling a hidden gem. The space here is narrow and enclosed, defined by sharp, clean geological lines. The terrain does not expand outward, but compresses into a glacial trench, a linear valley carved and deepened by ancient glaciers during the last ice age. Covering an area of only 0.12 square kilometers, Fälensee stretches in an elongated form, resembling a small fjord embedded between massive limestone cliffs. The lake rests in a confined corridor where limited sunlight reaches the surface and reflections appear subdued beneath steep, vertical slopes. This closed topography creates a cool microclimate, with patches of snow persisting on the upper ridges even into the summer months. On the map, Fälensee is located at the heart of the Alpine Massif, a few kilometers southeast of Saxer and roughly 6 to 7 kilometers from the village of Wasserrauen by foot. The most common approach is along the trail from Bolenwies, where the lake emerges like a dark, still mirror held within stone, isolated yet perfectly composed within the natural structure of the Alpstein. At the eastern edge of the Alpstein range, the terrain narrows into a tight passage where limestone walls rise like blades shaped by tectonic pressure. Saxer Lücke is not a gentle mountain pass. It is a vertical opening, a clean incision cut into the ridge, guarded by the towers of the Kreuzberg chain. These limestone pillars form a sequence of serrated peaks, created from folded strata, pushed upward and fractured by erosion, their silhouettes resembling a fortress built by the earth itself. Beneath this wall of stone, the landscape drops abruptly into a contrasting system. The elongated basins of Fälensee and Samitensee lie in a deep trench, pressed between nearly vertical rock faces. Here, water is not a soft counterpoint, but a structural line, a narrow, reflective plane at the base of towering cliffs, mirroring the hardness above. Fog often drifts through the gap, not to soften the scene, but to emphasize depth, revealing the vertical difference between ridge and valley through slow, layered motion. When light strikes the limestone, the entire ridgeline becomes a living geological diagram. Fractures, folds, and planes, revealed with absolute clarity. Saxer Lücke stands as one of Switzerland's most sharply defined thresholds, a place where horizontal basins collide with vertical stone architecture. It is Alpstein distilled into geometry, contrast, and structural force. In the sharply carved terrain of the Glarus region, Klöntalersee lies within a valley shaped not by slow erosion, but by a sudden geological upheaval. The lake originated after a massive rockslide blocked the valley, allowing glacial water to accumulate and form the water body that exists today. Human engineering later strengthened this barrier, yet the landscape remains defined primarily by the original force of the natural event. Klöntalersee is enclosed by steep mountain walls that rise with deliberate verticality. These slopes compress the lake into a defined shape, directing the water along the length of the valley like a controlled ribbon of turquoise and deep blue. When wind falls silent, the surface becomes a perfect planar mirror, doubling the height of cliffs and turning the valley into a symmetrical composition of stone and reflection. Forests cling to the lower slopes, creating dark vertical bands that contrast with the pale rock above. In autumn, these bands shift into gold and red, while in winter, the entire valley reduces to a strict palette of stone, ice, and shadow. What distinguishes Klöntalersee is its sense of enclosure. The lake exists not as an open body of water, but as a contained system shaped by steep lateral constraints and a valley geometry that prioritizes vertical dominance. Klöntalersee stands as a precise demonstration of how natural barriers can define a landscape, trapping water, framing light, and creating one of Switzerland's most structured alpine basins. In the long, glacially carved expanse of the Scheckental Valley, Stäubifall appears as a single vertical rupture in a landscape otherwise defined by wide meadows and layered slopes. Water does not cascade here in gentle steps, it drops in one decisive movement. Emerging from a fracture high on the cliff wall, the waterfall plunges nearly 100 meters, forming a straight column that exposes the height and structure of the valley's rock face with absolute clarity. The surrounding terrain is arranged in horizontal sequences: pastureland, forest belts, and rising slopes. Against this composition, Stäubifall becomes a stark counterforce, a narrow vertical line slicing through the lateral rhythm of the valley. During early summer, meltwater transforms the fall into a dense, white mass, and the resulting spray forms a drifting veil that partially obscures the cliff behind it. Light seldom reaches the waterfall directly due to the valley's orientation. As a result, Stäubifall often appears in diffused illumination, revealing textures of water movement and the contrast between dark basaltic stone and the pale column of falling water. Stäubifall embodies the meeting of elevation and gravity. It marks the point where the valley wall can no longer hold its water, releasing it in a single downward force. This waterfall is not an ornament of the landscape, but a structural expression, a reminder of the vertical energy still active within the alpine terrain. At nearly 2,000 meters above sea level, Fronalpstock rises as a natural observation platform where the landscape of central Switzerland reveals itself in its full structural clarity. From the summit, the terrain opens into a complete 360-degree panorama, linking mountains, valleys, and waterways into a single integrated system. Below, Lake Lucerne extends in long, sweeping arms, cutting through the surrounding peaks like geological corridors carved by ancient glaciers. And if one looks closely at the stone beneath their feet, traces of an older world sometimes appear, folded layers of sediment that once formed the floor of an ancient sea, or fossilized shells trapped between slabs of rock, fragments of memory lifted high by the shifting of the Earth's crust. Surrounding the lake is a ring of prominent peaks, Rigi, Pilatus, and the ridgelines of Schwyz and Glarus, each rising in distinct silhouettes that outline the region's geomorphological history. In winter, these summits transform into sharply defined contours of snow and stone, exposing the underlying architecture of the Alps with greater precision. During the warmer months, the slopes around Fronalpstock shift into open alpine meadows. These broad, grassy surfaces contrast with the heavy mineral mass of the mountains, forming a transition zone between lowland vegetation and high-altitude rock. The landscape becomes a layered composition: water at the base, soft meadows in the midsection, and rigid peaks above. What defines Fronalpstock is its spatial exposition. Light travels unobstructed across the ridge, revealing the relationships between lake basins, valley floors, and surrounding highlands. It is a point where the geography of Switzerland becomes legible, a summit that functions as both viewpoint and structural map of the Central Alps. In the Engadin Valley, high above the lowland climates of Switzerland, Street Moritz occupies a basin shaped by prolonged winters and long arcs of alpine history. The mountains surrounding it rise in rigid contours, their slopes marked by layers of snow that persist long after warmer regions have thawed. This setting creates a landscape defined not by vegetation or settlement, but by altitude, cold, and the geometry of ice. The lake at the center of Street Moritz dictates the rhythm of the terrain. In winter, its surface freezes into a broad, flat expanse, a horizontal plain that contrasts with the sharp vertical lines of the surrounding peaks. This frozen field reveals the valley's structure with remarkable clarity, a bowl of stone rimmed by mountains, with the lake forming its central anchor. When thawed, the lake becomes a reflective layer, doubling the outlines of ridges and slopes in precise symmetry. Urban elements occupy the elevated terraces above the water, arranged in a stepped formation that follows the valley's gradient. Buildings appear embedded into the terrain rather than imposed upon it, continuing the horizontal-vertical relationship that defines the region. Light at this altitude behaves differently. Low angles create long shadows across snowfields, while clear air exposes every ridge and fold of the mountains. Street Moritz stands not merely as a resort town, but as a landscape constructed by altitude, where ice, stone, and cold air form the essential architecture of its identity. In tracing these landscapes, one conclusion becomes unavoidable. Switzerland is shaped less by stories than by structure. Each peak, valley, and lake is a record of pressure, erosion, and time, arranged with a precision that leaves little space for coincidence. Even its cities follow the logic of the land, not the other way around. In the end, the country's identity emerges not from ornament, but from the way nature organizes form, scale, and light into a single, coherent whole.